What's up, snakeheads fishing fanatics? Today I'll be sharing with you guys fishing lines and knots that I love to use to catch snakeheads within the United States. In our country, we actually have 3 species here, but the first one I'm talking about right now is called a black snakehead. It's located in Hawaii, so we're gonna forego that because not many people fish for that there, and plus they're kind of endangered over there. But anyway, we won't even talk about that in this video. We'll be focusing only on the northern snakehead and the bullseye snakehead. Note that I only use artificial lures to catch snakeheads. I know there are other rigs used for live bait, but since I'm only using artificial lures to catch snakeheads, we are only focusing on those type of lines and knots used for artificial lures. We're gonna jump straight to the point, the types of line you should be using. I am gonna tell it straight up to you guys, all you need is braided line. Of course, you need it in different diameters or pound ratings, but braided line is very important when fishing for snakeheads for many reasons. First and foremost, snakeheads have very strong bite force. So in order for you guys to set the hook properly, you gotta have a line that does not stretch at all. Like mono stretches, floral stretches as well. It doesn't start as easy like mono, but eventually it will stretch even further than mono. So no stretchy lines, just straight up braid. In addition, snakeheads are not line shy. They are true apex predators. They don't care if you use braided line for topwater lures. They don't care if you use it for subsurface. Now, snakeheads have some sharp teeth, but good thing their teeth are not straight like bowfins, which is very similar to snakeheads, but definitely a lot different. Bowfins, they have very perfectly aligned teeth. So when they actually saw your line, it's kind of like a hot knife to a stick of butter. Just go cut it straight through. Another good example are bluefish. For those who fish saltwater, you guys know how sharp their teeth are. So right off the get-go, I just want to inform you guys, each time you guys get a bite, whether you guys land a fish or it spits it out, make sure you guys check those fishing line, make sure you guys check for nicks, and if you guys need to retie those line. Let's talk about line diameter. Now, I don't want to talk about specific brands because everyone have their own favorite brands, right? So we're just gonna talk about pound ratings. And for me, who uses bait casters, I like to use 40-pound braided line. Now, a lot of people who fish topwater lures like hollow body frogs, they will use higher, like 65-pound braided line. But using 65-pound braided line, that means you have thicker line, which means you have less capacity on your spool. When I fish for snakeheads, sometimes I fish for it on a kayak, sometimes I fish for it on a bank. So while I'm fishing on a bank, I definitely want to be able to cast as far as possible. So I do not want any sort of line that will reduce my line capacity. In fact, I use 40-pound braided line for a typical average size bait casting reel, and I can spool myself if you guys have a very good frog. Or there's plenty of ways that you can modify a frog so that I cast further and more accurate. We can save that for another video. For spinning reels, I like to use 30-pound braid line. That's definitely thin enough and still very strong for those snakeheads. And there's other options that you could do, which we'll talk about in the next topic on how you can improve that line strength. With that said, you can still use thinner braid, especially for those who like to use spinning reels. For spinning reels, I like to use 30-pound braid line because in a spinning reel, you can't use thick line at all. If you use thick line, due to the nature of spinning reels, how the line spirals off your spool, the thicker the line you use, the quicker the spool shrinks. And when that happens, that line's gonna rub against the top portion of your spinning reel, and then you will lose casting distance. Many people opt for bigger reels, like bigger spinning reels, whether it's a 3,000 or 4,000, but I don't like that idea because when you do that, you're basically putting more weight into your fishing setup, and that means you get tired quicker, especially when you guys fishing artificial lures. You guys are casting non-stop casting. You guys will be fatigued by maybe middle of your fishing trip. So that's why you need to use thinner line for spinning gears. Of course, all my lines I talked about so far are thin. You guys are probably wondering, man, how do I avoid getting my line cut? That's very simple, and there's actually many ways to prevent your line being cut. And the first one is you could tie on a leader material. But Jimmy, you just said that you don't want to tie on leader materials. Actually, I said don't use materials that could stretch. So that's mono, that's floral, heck, that's even copolymer. So what can you actually tie on to your braided line? Is it like steel leader material? Well, technically you use steel leader or titanium leader, like wire leaders, but I don't like to use those because those are pretty expensive, and if you bend them, they looks all pretty ugly. So I don't want to use that. You guys could use that if you guys want to. Just a short leader is fine, but you guys could actually tie braid as a leader material. That's right. You could technically use a thicker braid for your leader. So tying braid to braid is actually very, very easy. So you go from 30 pounds to, let's say, 65 pounds. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people like to tie on 65-pound braided line for their bait casters for frogging. Well, you tie on a 65-pound braided line to your 30-pound or your 40-pound, and you guys have thicker line. But I'll be quite honest with you, some people still fear, and some people have said that they have the line cut, especially with those big fish of a lifetime, you know, over 10 pounds, over 15-pound northern snakeheads. For those in Asia who could catch giant snakeheads, they could get their 65-pound braided line cut clean. So what do you guys do? Well, the second solution is you double up your line. That's right, you can double up your line. And there's loop knots that you guys can tie, such as the Bimini twist, which you guys can check out the link within the description below. I left a link on how you guys could tie the Bimini twist. The other one is quicker than the Bimini twist, but the Bimini twist is actually the strongest loop knot leader ever. In fact, that's the loop knot that people tie on the braided line to do the GT knot, which is actually the strongest mainline to leader material. I think there's a couple places that actually done the test. I'll leave a link in the description below if you guys want to read that article, showing that the GT knot is actually the strongest, and again, it uses the Bimini twist. But anyway, we actually use the Bimini twist to create that loop, and when you create that loop, you double up your line, right? That is a genius idea. So now you have two 30-pound braided line or two 40-pound braided line. So it's like 60 or 80. Or if one gets snapped off, you still have another one, kind of like insurance. The other loop knot that's actually very quick and easy is a figure 8 loop knot. And that is so easy to tie. I'm gonna show you guys how to do it in this video because it's so quick. So this is how you get that figure 8 loop knot done. The figure 8 loop knot is very easy to make. All you do is take your braided line and fold it over like so. And then you want to size the leader that you want. So once you figure out how much you want, and I like to typically do it short, 6 to 12 inches is all you need. And once you figure out what you want to hold it right by the tag end, both lines, okay, both sides. And you want to do a loop like this, crossing it over. And if you were to just take the tag end loop and stick it in the hole right now, you basically have a simple overhand knot loop. But what we want is the figure 8. So what you want to do is take this line, put it behind that loop right there. So behind the loop, and then back to the front and stick the loop end into the first loop you created. And if you see, and I'm going to rotate this a little bit, you have a figure 8 right there. That's why it's called figure 8 knot. And once you pull tight, boom, this is a strong loop knot. So yeah, my favorite way to do it is just create these loop knots and double up my line. However, there is actually a flaw when you guys use these double up line. If you guys notice, I have been using the line that's on my spool in order to create this double leader material, right? So if you keep switching lures, you're basically cutting line off twice as much because you are using twice as much line to tie your knots, right? There are two solutions for that. The first solution is use the tactical angler's clip. This is a great clip for you to add and remove lures very easily. It looks like a paper clip. All you need is a 50-pound version. You can slide the lure easily on and easily off. There's enough force within this clip to actually keep the clip together so your lure doesn't slide off very easily. The last method is actually really, really cool. I have never shared this with anyone before, so you guys are first to hear it from me. And that is tying a leader knot that will give you two lines. That's right, there is actually a knot that allows you to tie from your main braid to leader braid and have two tagged ends. And we're gonna cover that very shortly because we are now gonna get into the topic of fishing knots. So, terminal knots, the knots that you tie to your lures or to your tactical angler clip. To be quite honest, when you have very, very thick braided line, you guys can use just about almost any knot to tie, but personally I like to use the uni knot because it's quick, it's simple, it's fast. With thicker line or the double up braided line, tying the uni knot, it will never slip. Again, with thicker braided line, it's more forgiving for terminal knots, so you guys can use whatever knots you guys feel like using. But again, Jimbo recommend the uni knot. So let's talk about leader knots. We already touched base on two knots. The first one was the Bimini twist. Second is the figure 8 knot. Okay, those are 2 knots that you can create the loop to double up your line. Just quick tip, you don't need a lot of line when you double up your line. All you need is about 6 inches to a foot. If you have too much line, especially when you're fishing subsurface, it's just gonna create more drag. But you're fishing top water, it doesn't really matter at all. And I'm assuming if you guys are fishing heavy cover for snakeheads and stuff like that, you guys won't use micro guides anyway, so it wouldn't matter with any of these knots that I've mentioned so far. But if you guys are using micro guides, then you guys may want to consider another option. But I'm telling you, if you guys are using micro guides, you guys are gonna have shorter leaders. But anyway, the last knot that you guys want to know, especially for the one that I mentioned earlier to tie on 2 tag ends, it's actually very simple. It's the Alberto Knot. That's right. When you use the Alberto Knot and you create that little bend, that little bite, and you wrap your lines up and down, well, technically, you don't need a small tag end for your leader material, right? So if you want a foot of leader, you pull out 2 feet of line material and you fold it in half, exactly in half, and then you have 1 foot. And then that's when you do your Alberto Knot. You do your Alberto Knot exactly in the middle of that folded leader braid. And once you finish that, you basically have 2 lines to tie onto your lures. There you go. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you guys found this video useful, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. And if you guys have any tips you want to share with me or with other viewers, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Quick shout out to SS Custom Baits. The frog that you guys have seen within this video is from SS Custom Baits, their snake frog. This frog had won me 2 competitions last year when I fished against other YouTubers. The fish don't wait, guys, so make sure you prepare your tackle. Get ready for that spring season. For me in New Jersey, the snakehead bite starts late March if there is a warm spell, but definitely in April, it's gonna be hot, hot, hot. If you guys are typically bass anglers, you guys will know that when bass pre-spawns, so does snakeheads. So make sure you guys get those gears set up, man. I know those people in Florida right now, you guys are probably slaying them right now.
Yeah, you did. I thought that was slaying, like a bowfish.
Nope, I got a bowfish. Not a bowhead. Did you save the day?